Hi guys, and welcome to a new video where I will teach you how to build a user interface game with C++. So this is a beginner-friendly project, so if you don't have much experience with building user interface applications, welcome. This is a video for you. So in this video we are going to use C++ Builder and RAD Studio, which stands for Rapid Application Development. And I'm going to leave a link in the description that you can use in order to download it and try it out for free. And I will also link some more videos where I teach you about building user interface applications and games with C++. So make sure to watch those videos as well. So with that being said, let me show you the application that we are going to build. So here is the application that we are going to build, and it's actually pretty self-explanatory. It says, please enter the number. So I will enter number 5. And click confirm, and now the situation on our user interface has changed a little bit. It says now you can guess the number, and also we have a wrong attempts counter here. It is 0 so far. So let's try to guess the number. Let's enter number 1 and click confirm, and we get a helper message which says number too low, and also we made one wrong attempt. So let's try with a bigger number. Let's try with number 10, for example. So I will click confirm again. And now it says that the number is too big. And also we made 2 wrong attempts. So let's try third time with the number in the middle. So number 5, and I click confirm. And now it says you won, congratulations. So that is the application that I'm going to show you how to build. So as you already know, when I show you how to build a particular application, I like to divide it into several steps so that it is easier for you to understand, and I'm going to do that this time as well. So the first step is to create our project. So let's create a new multi-device application with C++ Builder. It is going to be blank application, and I will click OK. And now our project has been created. Now the second step is going to be to create a user interface, which means that now we are going to put on this form here all the controls that our application should contain. And I will just drag and drop those controls from this palette here. The first thing that I will need is a label. So the label, this is going to be our title. Okay, and then we need an edit. So an input field where we are going to enter our number. I will just make it a little bit bigger. And then we need a button. Okay, I will put it here, and I will also make it a little bit bigger, like this. And then we need a message label. So another label where we will write a helper message to our user. Okay, and then one more thing that we need is going to be a label where we will write out the count of the attempts that our user has made. So I will put it here, like this. Okay, and then I will make this form a little bit smaller. So I believe that is all for the user interface. If we forgot something, we are going to come back and then add it later. So the second step that I want to do is I want to change the names of these controls here. And they currently have default names, which are label 1, label 2, label 3, button 1, edit 1, and so on. And what I want to do instead is I want to name them according to their purpose. And the reason for doing that is because I want to access these controls from my C++ code. And it is going to be much easier to remember which control is which if they have meaningful names. So instead of this being called label 1, I will call it title label. And then this label 3 will be called counter label. And then label 2 will be called helper label, and so on. So let's do that. I will click on my label 1. And here I will change its name property, so I will call it title label. Okay, and then label 2 will be helper label. Okay, and then label 3 will be counter label. Button 1 will be called confirm button. And then this edit 1 will be called numbers edit, like this. So with this, we have changed the names of all of our controls. And now we can proceed with step number 3. The third step is building the logic. And since our game is a game for 2 users, I will separate this into 2 parts. The first part is going to be building the logic for our user who will initially enter the number, and then the second part will be building the logic for the user who should guess that number. So let's build that first part of the logic. I am going to open this unit1.cpp and then this unit1.cpp again. And here I'll just make it a little bit bigger so that you can read. And here we will build the first part of the logic. So inside this constructor here, what I want to do is I want to define what is going to happen when our application starts initially. So what I want to happen when our application initially starts is I want to change a few things. First thing is that I want to write out the title here. So I want to say something like, please enter the number. And then this counter label will be equal to 0. And this helper label will be empty. So there will be no helper message at this point. So let's return to our unit1.cpp. And here I will say that title label, its text property will be equal to please enter the number, like this. Okay, and then as I said, our counter label, its text property, let's just make it capital T, so its text property will be equal to 0. And the third thing is helper label, and its text will be empty, like this. So if I start my program, let's see what is going to happen. Okay, as you can see here it says please enter the number, and then the counter is 0. So what I want to happen next is when my user enters the number, let's say for example number 55, and clicks on this confirm button, I want this number here to be removed. I also want to store it so that we know which number our first user has entered. And then I will give the opportunity to my second user to guess this number here. So what I want to do now is I will build the logic for this confirm button. So let's close the application, and then I will go to my unit1.fmx, and here I'm going to create on-click event handler for this button here. So how do you do that? Well, you just double-click on that control, and as you can see, it has created a method which is a handler which will be invoked every time that our user clicks on confirm button. So here I'm going to write the logic of what is going to happen when the user clicks on that button. So here I want to do the following. The first thing that I want to do is I want to check if we are writing the logic for the first user or for the second user. So the first thing that we are going to need is actually 2 things. And those are 2 variables. The first one that is going to tell us if the number has already been entered. And then the second variable will be a variable where we are going to store the number that our first user enters, which means the number that our second user has to guess. So let's create those 2 variables. I will do it here. And the first one is going to be of type bool. And it is going to be called is number entered. Okay, and initially I will give it the value of false. Now you can do that here, or you can do it here as well in the constructor, and then if you don't assign any value, the default value that is assigned to bool variables is false. So you are not going to make mistake in any of those 3 cases. So that is the first thing. And then the second thing is another variable of type int, and that is going to be our guess number. And here I'm going to store the number that my first user enters. Now, what I want to do with this is number entered variable is inside this confirm button, I want to check if my number has been entered. I want to let my second user to guess that number, But if that number has not been entered, that means that I first need to let my first user to enter that guess number. So let's write the logic for our first user. I will say if, and then I will use this variable here. So if the number is not entered, please pay attention that I added this not here. So if the number is not entered, please do the following code. So please perform this block of code here. So what is going to happen if that number has not been entered already? Well, I will take the input from this edit here. So I will take its text and I will store it into this variable here. So I will say that my guess number is equal to numbers edit. So that is the name of our edit. So numbers edit, it's text property, and I want to convert it to integer number like this. So that is going to be the first step. So I have taken the input from my user and stored it into this guess number variable. And now I'm going to say that now the number has been entered. So now this variable becomes true. And then I want to do something else, and that will be that I want to change this title label. I will write out a message for my second user. So I will return here and I will say that title label, its text will be equal to, now you can guess the number. So this is a message for our second user. So let's run our program and let's see what we have achieved so far. So, okay, it says please enter the number, and here I enter the number 55, for example, and I click confirm. Okay, and now it says now you can guess the, and then we don't see the rest of the message, so we are going to make this label a little bit bigger. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that now we need to also remove this number, because it doesn't make sense to say now you can guess the number while the number is still being available in this input field. So let's fix those two things. Okay, the first thing is I will make this title label a little bit bigger, like this. And then the second thing is I want to clear the text from my numbers edit. So I will say numbers edit, its text property will be equal to an empty string, like this. So let's run our program again. Okay, so again it says please enter the number, and I will enter the number 66. And if I click confirm, as you can see, it says now you can guess the number, and the number has been cleared. So what we can do now is we can write the second part of the logic, which is the logic for the user who is going to guess the number. So we are going to write that second part of the logic in the else block. So here it says if the number is not entered, please make the first user enter that number. Else, which means if the number is entered, then we are going to make our second user guess that number. So I'm going to say else, and here I will write the second part of the logic. So there are three things that could potentially happen in this else block. So three things that our second user can do. The first option is that he successfully guesses the number. The second option is that he enters the number which is too low, so a smaller number than our first user. And then the third option is that he enters a number which is too big. And we are going to cover all of those three situations. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to take the number that my second user entered. So let's create a variable of type int, and I will call it second user's number. And inside this variable, I will store the number from my numbers edit text property. I just want to convert it to int, like this. Okay, so this is the number that our second user has entered. So what we have to do now is we have to check if this second user's number is equal to the guess number, so the number that our first user has entered. So I will say if, and then I will compare the two. So I will say if second user's number is equal to guess number, like this. What I want to do in this situation is I want to write out a message to my user. So I will use my helper label, and inside its text property I will say you won. Okay, and then congratulations. And then another thing that I want to do is I want to disable my confirm button, because there is no reason for him to be able to execute this method anymore after he guesses the number. So I will say confirm button, and I will use its enabled property and set it to false, like this. And if this here happens, if our user guesses the number, I will just say return, like this. Okay, so this is the situation where our user guesses the number correctly. But there are also other situations where our user enters the number which is greater than the first user's number, and then number which is lower. So after I have checked this, in the situation where this here is not true, I will proceed with an else if, which is going to check the following. So inside this else if, I will say please check if the second user's number is greater than guess number, like this. So in this situation I will write out a helper message to my user which says your number is too big. So I will use this helper label, and inside its text property I will say number too big, like this. One more thing that needs to happen is we have to show the number of attempts that our user made, and we also need to increase that counter of attempts every time that our user enters a wrong number. So in order to do that, let's create a variable of type int, and I will call it attempts counter, like this. And initially it is going to have the value of 0, because when we first start our application, our user has not made any attempts. So in the situation where our user enters a number which is too big, I will say that attempts counter will be incremented by 1, like this. And then another thing that I want to do is I want to show that attempts counter, so I will use counter label, and inside its text property I will put this value here, like this. Okay, so let's test this code so far. I'm going to run the program. Okay, so the first user enters the number 55, and I click confirm. So the number has been deleted. So now I can guess the number. So I will enter the number 99, for example, and if I click confirm, here I get the message which says number too big, and then attempts counter is set to 1. And then if I try another number, which is 88, for example, and click on confirm, as you can see, my attempts counter has been incremented. Okay, so that works as expected. And the third situation that we need to cover is when our user enters the number which is too low. So let's stop the program, and here I will write out a final else, which is a situation when our user enters the number which is too small. So here we have covered the situation where the numbers are equal. And then we have also checked if the second number is greater than the first number. So the only situation that remains is that the second number is smaller than the first number. So I will write that part of the logic inside this final else block. So I will say that here our helper message will say something else. So it will say that number is too low. So the number that our second user has entered is too small. And then I will do this part here as well. So I will say, please increment this attempts counter and then show the number of attempts. So I'm going to run my program again. Okay, and here I will enter the number 66. I will click confirm. Okay, and now I can guess the number. So let's enter number 77. I click confirm. Okay, and it says that number is too big, and here is our counter of attempts. So let's delete this number and let's try with another number. Let's say, for example, 55, and I click confirm. And now it says that the number is too low and the counter of attempts is 2. So let's attempt number 66 and I will click confirm. And as you can see, it says, congratulations, you won. So that is the game that I wanted to show you how to build. And one more thing that I want to do is, since this else if and then this else block are sharing this part of the code, as you can see, it is same here and here. I want to move that part of the code outside of those blocks. So I will remove it from here, and I can now remove these curly brackets. Okay, and then from here as well. So now what is going to happen is that if this second number is greater than the first number, it is going to write out this message, and then it will proceed and execute this part of the code. And then in case that this final else happens, it is going to write out this message, and then again it is going to proceed and execute this part of the code. So the behavior is going to stay the same. And then one more thing that I can do as well is I can use pre-increment here, and with that I can remove this line of code. So I can say, please first increment this variable and then put it inside this counter label. Okay, so if I run my program again, let me show you that the behavior stays the same. So I will enter the number 78 and I click confirm. So let's guess the number. Let's try number 100 and I click confirm. Okay, number is too big. I try 77, for example. I click confirm. Number of attempts is 2, and then number is too low. So let's try number 78. And if I click confirm, as you can see now it says you won, congratulations, and the number of attempts was 2. So that is the game that I wanted to show you, and now you can play it with your friends, or you can share it with them and teach them how to build the game themselves. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, because that means a lot to me, and it also means a lot for the YouTube algorithm. And if you have any questions or any topics that you would like to see in the future, let me know in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you in some other video. Bye!